What's up, everybody? It's Brian Jester, co-founder here at Occupy Fantasy, and we're back with some more NFL DFS picks and lineup advice for both FanDuel and DraftKings for tonight's single-game showdown slate Thursday Night Football between the Broncos and the Jets. I know, the matchup everyone's been waiting for. In this video, we're going to look at some top plays, talk about some lineup strategies for FanDuel and DraftKings, both low-risk and high-risk contests, discuss some projected ownership, and then also talk about how the salaries for this slate are unique and can cause us to change our strategies for how we build our lineups. Before we get started, though, go ahead and click that subscribe button. That way you get access to all of our videos as soon as they're released here on YouTube. As always, give us a thumbs up. The more thumbs ups that you give us, the more likely we are to create these types of videos. Any questions you have about this slate, you can always hop in our Discord channel. Instructions on how to join that are in the description below, or you could just talk in the comments, ask us questions, and we'll get back to you before the slate locks Thursday evening. Now, Jets, Broncos, the slates everyone has been looking for. Let's actually bring up our single game occupy model here. And if we look, the line has moved 5 points in the Jets' favor. They opened as 2.5-point underdogs. The Broncos announced a starting quarterback change. This likely had something to do with it. It also looks like some sharp money is on the Jets. So they're now 2.5-point favorites. So a 5-point flip. The total's 40.5 points. So real barn burner tonight between these two teams. Let's go back to DraftKings here. A couple injury replacement situations to discuss. So Brett Rippon, the undrafted free agent last year, is actually getting the start for Denver this week over Jeff Driscoll. Remember, Drew Lock is still injured. Brett Rippon came in last week, went 8 of 9, did throw an interception on the fourth down on his final attempt, but accurate as he was in college, doesn't have the big tools that a lot of the prototypical NFL quarterbacks have, which is why he went undrafted. But again, he's a very accurate quarterback, and as we saw last week, completed 88% of his passes in a limited time frame. So he's getting the start tonight. There's some talk about Jeff Driscoll getting a couple snaps, whether it's like a wildcat or even out wide. He played wide receiver for Cincinnati in preseason a couple years ago. So I put some money on Driscoll seeing at least 1 or 2 snaps, but not enough to play him in any showdown slate. Rippon will be the starter and the primary quarterback. Other injuries, Jamison Crowder. Sounds like he's going to play. Has missed the last 2 games with a hamstring injury. He said he's not 100%, but he's going to give it a go and he's going to play. I think we have to project him as we normally would. He dominated opportunities in week 1 with no other receivers on the roster. 13 targets, ton of air yards relative to everyone else on his team. So Crowder is going to be the number 1 option for Sam Darnold tonight. Philip Lindsay, technically questionable, but all the tea leaves read and even reports this morning say that he's likely not going to play tonight. He's missed the last couple of weeks, which just means even more run for Melvin Gordon and some more run for backup Royce Freeman without Philip Lindsay. Speaking of Melvin Gordon, we expect him to be by far the highest owned player on both FanDuel and DraftKings. One, he's the highest priced in people's minds that anchors it a bit, and higher priced players end up being higher owned. Sounds crazy, I know, but that's how it works. So Gordon, we expect to be close to 80 to 90% owned on both sites. The highest captain or MVP on both sites. And whether we go that route in high risk contests, I don't know. But if we're talking about low risk contests, and let's start there, he makes sense as the first guy to plug into your lineup. If you read our Showdown strategy guide, the Captain Spot ebook, 15 chapters of single game strategy and historical research, you know we like to get in 2 quarterbacks, 2 running backs to lock up all the scoring. So if we get Melvin Gordon here in that captain, let's go to the captain, put him in, get both quarterbacks. Now the issue is, all right, which Jets running back do we use? Because they use 3: Frank Gore, Kalen Ballage, Lamichael Pirine. Now, Gore is the early down back. Even last week, though, they were down 1 million points, and he was playing throughout the fourth quarter. So he's going to play regardless of the game script, just mostly on early downs. Kalen Ballage is purely the passing down back. And because they've been down so often the last 2 weeks, he's gotten a decent amount of run at the position. And then Pirine is the backup to Frank Gore, change of pace. And he got 7-8 touches last week and should get similar this week, maybe even more in a game script where the Jets hopefully keep it close, the closest they've kept the game all season as 2.5-point favorites. So Pirine's in play too. Really the safest bet here for low risk is Frank Gore. So just something to keep in mind. I guess if we had to do it, it would be Frank Gore. But all things considered, given the grossness of this slate, the uncertainty, in Brett Rippon's ability, the uncertainty in the Jets' backfield, it's not really the best low-risk night. So if you can find some contests with inexperienced players, sure, go play 2 running backs, 2 quarterbacks, and find some crazy lineups that other people will put in. But for your typical low-risk night, it's something you probably want to avoid. Again, as always, if you find poor competition, go play those players. But if not, it looks like a pure high-risk night to us. Same thing goes on FanDuel. If we go over to FanDuel, if we put Melvin at MVP, and then we get Darnold, Brett Rippon's super cheap, $12K for a quarterback, and then we go Frank Gore, $10K. That leaves us $9K left over, like very reasonable to do this. So again, if you find some soft competition, you can certainly make these types of lineups. High risk contest is where it is tonight, and a couple things here to note on both FanDuel and DraftKings. Prices are wild. And because of the lack of studs outside of Melvin Gordon, there are some cheaper players, like even as far down as, this sounds crazy, but like, so we have Balaj, obviously, Herndon, KJ Hamler at 4,800, could legit be the highest scoring player on the slate. We're not projecting that he's going to be, but he has the possibility to. Even someone like Chris Hogan, who's been getting air yards through the first 3 weeks of the season. There's a lot of options to pay down here. And in fact, some of these pay down options could outscore the studs. So if you're making lineups for this slate, especially in high-risk contests, you're not going to use the entire salary cap. In fact, you should probably leave more left over than you normally do. That's how crazy the pricing is, especially on FanDuel. If you listen to our premium podcast with Colin Drew from this morning for OccupyFantasy.com members, I made a comment saying a year from now, we're going to look back and say, wow, remember that Broncos and Jets slate where the optimal lineup used like $40,000 of the salary? And I think that might be the case. Like the possibility of leaving a lot of salary left over here is very much in play. The other thing we have to think about, even though it's a low total, and we generally look to running backs in low total games, is Melvin Gordon going to be 40% captain? Probably close to it. Is he 40% likely to be the optimal player in this game? Probably not. So if you're looking for guys who can exceed expectations, we have to look toward the 2 underperforming receivers. If you listen to our Week 4 podcast, if you're going to check out the daily plug, OccupyFantasy.com, we talk about underperforming receivers every week starting Week 4. These are receivers that have seen a lot of opportunity through 3 weeks, but they haven't converted. And generally what that means is they have blow-up games in the very near future. 3 guys meet the criteria, 2 on the Denver side for this game. Jerry Judy, rookie receiver. Cortland Sutton's out, so Jerry Judy's going to get a ton of looks in the passing game. KJ Hamler, who we already mentioned, both of these guys are underperformers based on their usage through 3 weeks. And Hamler's only played 2 games and he meets the criteria. And then Chris Hogan. Obviously, he takes a hit with Jamison Crowder back. But the fact that he's on the outside running routes should be, he still should be in play here, especially at his price tag of just $3,200. If we go over on FanDuel, let's see what these guys are priced like. Jerry Judy's $11K. KJ Hamler's $7,500. To find Chris Hogan here if I can find him. Chris Hogan's weirdly $8,500. But again, these guys are underperformers. Should see touchdowns coming in their future. Maybe it's tonight, maybe it's next week. Maybe it ends up being never. But they're more likely to hit as a result of their underperforming status. So keep those guys in mind for your high-risk contest. A lot to digest for this particular slate. And we're going to detail it all in the Thursday edition of the Daily Plug, OccupyFantasy.com. I'll write up every single player and then give specific strategies for FanDuel and DraftKings, especially for high-risk contests tonight. So I encourage you to go check that out after you watch this video. It'll be up by 4 p.m. Eastern on the site. All right, before we get out of here, go ahead and click that subscribe button. I encourage you again, that way you get access to all of our videos when they're released. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. That lets us know that we should continue to make these types of videos. Any questions you have, head over to Discord or hop in the comments below, and we'll help you out and answer them for the slate locks tonight. So, Brian Jester from Occupy Fantasy. Appreciate you listening, as always. Good luck tonight, and we'll talk to you soon.